Hi, everyone. Dr. Susan Brown, Director of the Center for Better Bones. I've been telling you that there's really life after fracture, and anybody who's fractured knows that, yet still millions of women are terrorized that they're going to fracture. Often the worst thing a doctor can say is, you're going to fracture, you have to use these bone drugs. We sort of are forgetting the capacity of our human body to heal and to regenerate bone like we regenerate everything else. Today I have the good fortune of having with me Lassie. Lassie lives in the state of Washington. She happened to attend our retreat in Sedona, our Love Your Bones, Love Your Life retreat. And I was amazed at her spirit, her engagement with life. And I was also amazed to realize she has suffered some 30 fractures. So I invited Lassie to come here today and talk a little bit about her history, how she maintained such resilience and such a positive attitude, even though she had this situation of many fractures in her life. So Lassie, thank you very much. Welcome for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you. It's lovely for you to have me. And I so enjoyed the retreat. It was just such a delight.
Oh, great, great. We love doing those, and it creates such a wonderful community we create. But Lassie, so tell me, so when did you have your first fracture? How did they come along to end up to be 30?
Well, I had my first fracture when I was 16, and I was in a bicycle accident, and I fractured my shoulder.
Okay.
And I didn't think anything of it, was in this cast, in this body cast, and I went on about my life. But I started having odd fractures. Roughhousing with my husband, we were first married, I broke my hand. They seemed a little odd. And then I started breaking fingers and toes, but I never thought anything of it. I just, taped one to the other, and doctors don't do much for you when you have broken toes and broken fingers. They sort of say, we're so sorry, here's a tape, you're on your way. But I started fracturing ribs, and that seemed to be the huge problem. If I was holding something and bumped into a door, or it was easy for me to fracture ribs. And that's the majority of what I fractured. And it wasn't until, I'm trying to think exactly when that was, 2007, so 2006, 2007, I went to a funeral, and I had on very low, but dress shoes, but low heels. Right. And I was standing on a cement, on a tile floor in a church, and it was not a religion I was familiar with, and so I was just trying to do what I was supposed to do, and I ended up standing for 3 hours. And I came home and my feet were absolutely killing me. I put back on my nice running shoes, got them tight, and figured tomorrow they'll be fine. 3 weeks later, I still could hardly walk. So I went to the doctor and discovered that I had 6 metatarsal fractures.
Wow.
3 in each feet. The 3 center bones in the foot, not the pinky, not the big toe, but the 3 in the middle on both feet. And I said, this is crazy. So I started on a round of doctors. I went to all kinds of doctors. And nobody sort of went, whatever.
They couldn't figure out the cause of all these fractures.
No. So finally, I went to a man who is, I think he's a genius, but he unfortunately should deal with inanimate objects because he had the bedside manner of a gorilla. But anyhow, he basically looked at me and did all these but he basically looked at my nails, my tongue, my eyes, my shins, my whatever. He says, you've got celiac disease.
By looking at you.
Which was subsequently verified by tests, but that was his call. So in June of 2007, I went gluten-free.
I see. So celiac disease was involved with this.
Was involved with that. So I found out I had celiac disease, and then that's what made a huge difference. In the space of about 3 months, I had lost 40 pounds. I had lost 12 inches around my waist. My bones had healed. I stopped having sinus trouble. So there was a whole list of things that happened. So by 2008, I was feeling really good. I was down to 130 pounds. I was dancing. I was feeling fantastic. My husband and I went on a great big trip for my 60th birthday. We had a wonderful time. I could buy clothes that I liked. I could walk as long as I was convinced that all of it was that. And after that point, the only bones I fractured was in 2010. I had two vertebral fractures, compression fractures, L1 and L2.
And you mentioned you had that vertebral fracture because you were lifting some heavy weights, you said.
As I say, I'm a willful person, and I asked somebody to move my computer that were much heavier than, and they didn't, would you please, and they didn't, and I said, well, I'll do it myself. So I picked it up and moved it and ended up with two vertebral fractures. So I was in a brace for about 8 months. You clamp them on. There's a front and a back, and then you put the clamps on, and healed from that. And while I was doing that, I went to see a doctor who was supposed to help me with my osteoporosis. And he looked at me and he said, you either take bisphosphonates, bone drugs, right now, or I promise you, you will spend the rest of your life in a bed in agony, and you will die there.
Wow. And this was when you had those two vertebral fractures.
Right. I've got this brace on, and he looked at me. He said, "It is so bad. This is the only way that you're going to survive." And
what did you tell him?
Well, I had taken Fosamax 20 years ago when they first told me they thought I had osteoporosis, and then I investigated a lot. And when I understood the process of how bones work, with osteoclasts cleaning out old bone and osteoblasts putting down new bone, and each requiring the other to keep the process going, yes. I knew that was not going to work. So I told him, I said, I'm not doing that, and you're fired. And I put on my clothes and snapped on my brace and left. Doesn't mean I wasn't scared, but I just wasn't going to do that.
And so that's really interesting, because even though you had many fractures, you knew what fractures were. You healed from them. You weren't terrorized by this really attempt to frighten you. That's really so amazing. And what else is really amazing is you said you never had any other really low trauma fractures since then, since 2010.
No, I have not. I had a bad accident and broke my leg, but my friends actually said to me afterwards they didn't think I'd ever walk again. I spent 5 months in a wheelchair, which I had to do because I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012, right after my husband died, and they took my breast. Well, when they did something, and they took the muscle mass out of one side of my breast, so I couldn't use a walker. Because what was happening is all the muscles on the left side were working really well, and it was torquing my sternum.
Yes.
So I ended up choosing a wheelchair over a walker, and that's how I got around on that and a scooter for 5 months. And then I was able to use a walker because I was so much stronger.
Well, so I think the things that are really fascinating are your spirit with this all, having healed from many fractures, not being terrorized by the doctor suggesting that this would be your ultimate, you'd be in bed forever. And you went on to heal yourself from yet another fracture, from these vertebral fractures, quite nicely. Then you were fracture free till a car accident that really, it's, often the trauma can definitely be a cause of fractures. So,
it was actually a boat accident. I was actually climbing on a boat, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't a car. So I have a titanium rod and 6 screws in my leg.
Yeah.
And they put my leg on 8 degrees crooked when they put it back on. And so I have a issue with twisting my hip and all of that, but I still walk fine. I've just moved, and I was able to clean out my old house and get all settled in my new house. I didn't move the furniture. I didn't move the heavy stuff, but everything else I've moved. I've picked up boxes and, climbed on ladders and put everything away, and I'm fine.
What an excellent example, because you haven't let these situations stop you, even though there's obviously some peculiar genetic situation that caused you to have this weakness. You've dealt with it so well naturally, being able to continue with your life doing very well. And now you're doing the complete Better Bones, Better Body program. You're doing the nutrients, you're alkalizing, all those things.
I am doing all of that. And I have to admit that I failed a few days in the middle of moving, and I have taken refuge in gluten-free cookies, but other than that.
Well, we here at the Center for Better Bones, we want to thank you for your time and really, send the blessings that you charge on. Keep living the life the way
Well,
you.
I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to get a little farther back from the camera.
Okay.
And I just want you to see that I, in fact, can touch my toes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and wiggle, and I'm not in pain.
And so we remind everyone that you can fracture from healing. Don't, few of you are going to have the experience that Lassie had of so many fractures, but no, you can fracture from healing. And if in any way modern medicine can help to see why you're healing, like in Lassie's case, that celiac has undoubtedly played an important role. You work with those issues, you go full steam ahead, living a full life and enjoying your life and not losing confidence in your body's capacity to heal.
Because I believe that thoughts are real and that they have power. And having the thought that you will never walk again is like a prayer that you won't walk again. And I believed that I was going to walk again, and so I do.
And that's a great way to end, that everyone take heed that thoughts are like prayer. Thoughts turn into actions. What we think, we become.
Yes.
Thank you, Lassie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Again, I will see you soon because we're going to have an appointment.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.